Hello and welcome to another episode of A Picture in 1,000 Words. I'm Michael Fiedler. This one, entitled Balance, is an idea or a perspective that I've been holding on to for some time. So first, I want to start with sort of where this initial observation came from. And it comes from the fact that I have a wife who is from China. She's Asian. And I have an appreciation, given that my spouse is Eastern, for an Eastern way of looking at things. And being a Western male, I have sort of the Western perspective on things. And what I've learned about those two cultures is that in the Western world, the thing that matters most to us, what is sort of in our bones, is autonomy. Autonomy or freedom is something that we value above everything else. It's sort of at the bedrock of America. And if you want to get under our skin, just try to take away our autonomy. And it really drives a lot of our decision making, a lot of why we make the choices that we do, why we go after the things that we go after, what we care about, what we love, what we don't love. And autonomy is really the most important thing in the Western world. Now, conversely, in the Eastern world, like China, autonomy is not what's most important. It's actually somewhat discouraged, and really harmony is what matters most. And in the sort of traditional Chinese heritage, harmony is really the most important thing. What can you do to make the collective better and stronger? And these two forces, autonomy and harmony, are seemingly at odds with one another. And I think that this is really represents the difference between the Western and the Eastern mind. But I'm using this concept under the backdrop of a yin and yang symbol, which is obviously what's sort of front and center here. And let's just call the black half the yang, the sort of the more masculine, dominant side of the equation, that sort of autonomous driving force. And then the yin being the white side of the yin and yang symbol, sort of the softer, deeper, more visceral, harmonious vibe. And in reality, we need both. And both are very important. And that's sort of what that central message in the middle is of balance. And if you look at a yin and yang symbol, you see not only the two large sort of swooshing elements, but those two dots in each, in the sense that buried within each side is its complement. And having balance between the two, representing both, however at odds with each other, is really critical for success. And having a effective and enriching and fulfilling life. And balance is really at the crux of all of it. And I'm a believer that I think that the Eastern world actually figured out balance a long, long time ago. And you had these dynasties like the Ming dynasty or the Han dynasty or the Tang dynasty that were some of the most peaceful periods in history. And they were, 1,000 years ago, some of them. So I really think that this symbol and message is actually quite powerful and is worth holding on to. But I still think it could use some modernizing and some input from the Western mind. So that's sort of the layer one of this message. Layer two is now going into the pictures in the background. And so I want to start with the left. And what you'll see is a woman sort of looking professional and all by herself. And when I think of the female condition in 2020, I think that one of the things that this group really needs to lean into is autonomy, and really valuing number one, and not caring what other men think, what other women think, but just doing what is best for that singular individual. And for any woman listening to this, I mean that you make decisions that are for you and you alone, not your partner, not your child, not your parents, not your siblings, just you. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have permission to be reckless and self-destructive, but it does mean that you have the autonomy to make choices that are good for you and you alone. And where that's really powerful is that when done well, if you can do things that are good for just you and you alone, there can be dividends to others. So if a woman prioritizes her career and doesn't care about how it influences her family or how she's viewed by society. Granted, there can be ways that could be lead to unfortunate outcomes, like sort of a devil may care attitude. But when I say don't care, I mean not distracted by, not encumbered by, to sort of go head first into what you really care about. And in the end, if you're successful, those around you will likely benefit from that success. That sort of has worked for the XYs out there. Why can't it work for the double X's? And so the message here being really emphasize and care about and lean into that autonomy. And yes, your gender puts you at a disadvantage, but rather than thinking of yourself as a woman, just think of yourself as an individual and do what is good for you as an individual. Forget other women, forget other men, just prioritize yourself and let everybody else kind of deal with it. Now on the right side, in terms of harmony, I'm looking at the boys. Because I can probably guess that from a harmony perspective, men are not the best contributors. You know, if you were to see a group of men in public, that could raise some pulses. A lot of bad comes from large groups of men, unfortunately. And what I'm asking all the XYs out there to consider is, what have you done to establish harmony? What have you done for a greater good? Not what is good for yourself, what is to your own entertainment or personal pleasure, but what have you done for a collective good? And to really lean into that. And the metaphor that I'm generating here, these sort of men in a sort of a circular embrace, is one that probably could draw some snickers. But I think that's the issue, is can you imagine yourself as part of a unit, part of a larger group, something that is bigger than yourself, and operate in a way that isn't combative or competitive, in a way whose sole purpose is to establish peace between you and your fellow man. And before you raise criticism on what I'm doing to establish harmony, this is a perfect example. Not just this P1000, but all the other ones that have come before it. All this garbage I'm putting out on the internet is my attempt to establish harmony between minds, whether they be X's, double X's and XYs, whether it be straight, gay, or whatever else, just to establish a sense of peace between individuals. And so in giving women the permission to be autonomous and to only care about, number one, the individual, and giving men a call to action to do more to establish harmony, what I think the ultimate takeaway is for all of us to establish a sense of balance between our autonomous selves and our harmonious collective. Because in reality, the only way we're going to be successful is if both are taken care of. And it's not about winning and losing. It's about finding balance between the two. So I hope you enjoyed this. Take care.